An abuser comes along and says this person doesn't love themselves very much because probably every day someone tells them, why are you wearing that? Why you look like that? Why'd you do your hair like that? You ain't cute. You ain't all that. You can't sing. Your art's not that fine. Like you should do something about that. Everybody has a judgment. So now this person meets this abuser, and this abuser finds these cracks, and this abuser slithers in under the armor. And they begin to dismantle this person piece by piece, bit by bit, breaking them down to their smallest molecule. And next thing you know, we have larger, harsher abuses happening. Verbal, emotional, sexual, financial, digital, stalking, and we're all aware of physical abuse. See, we're all aware of the abuses that show signs. I've had my lip busted. I've had my nose busted. I bled all over my newborn baby when his father beat me with my son in my hands. I have been beaten since the day I was born. You see, that's why y'all can't hurt me. That's why your little petitions don't hurt me. If my mother couldn't kill me, what do you think you can do to me? And she tried. And she tried. My mother tried to kill me since the day I was born. You call me a whore, so what? My mother was the first person to call me a whore. You can't hurt me. You're not saying anything to me I haven't heard already. But say it to somebody else who's not as strong as I am. Because see, you don't think about what happens to that person after you judge them, after you break them down just a little bit more today. You don't think about when that person leaves this room, who they're gonna run into after you've just made them feel bad about themselves. It might be a pimp. It might be a beater. It might be somebody who wants to hurt somebody else because they're hurt. And then that person becomes a victim again and again and again, and it's perpetual. And it didn't start with you, though. See, it started earlier. It started in those formative years. Between birth and 5, we learn certain things. We learn alphabet, numbers, shapes, colors. We learn to maybe tie our shoelaces or go to the bathroom by ourselves. We become big kids. During this time, 85% of who you're going to be, your personality, during this time, 85% of who you're going to be begins to form. 90% of your brain forms between birth and 5. This is when most people learn abuse. But you see, you think that it's being punched in the face. You think that it's being thrown down a flight of stairs. You think that it's bloody and that there's bruises involved. You think that abuse looks a certain way. But between the age of 0 and 5, someone taught you something that you will carry with you the rest of your life. Someone said something about you, and it hurt you. It could have just been another kid. It might have been an adult. Maybe you weren't as pretty as your sister, as smart as your cousins. Maybe you just couldn't run as fast as your brother. But someone planted a seed of doubt in your mind, and you didn't think it was abuse. Every time someone tells you you're not good enough, they are abusing you. They're diminishing a part of you. It happens every day. Abuse is so silent. It happens so easily and often goes undetected. And that external rhetoric then becomes an internal rhetoric, and you say to yourself, well, maybe my hair is too nappy. I got bad hair. So I'm going to wear a weave the rest of my life. And I am too black, and yes, I wish I were lighter, so I'm going to stay out of the sun. I'm not that smart because I don't make the best grades, and my brother does better than I do, so I'm just going to drop out and do something else. I'm just not going to do this. I'm not good enough for this. And you don't realize you're being abused, and then so you see someone else, and she could be your best friend in the world, and you say, girl, what's that? Did you gain weight? You fat? What's this, a muffin top? And now you're abusing your best friend. And you call it your opinion. But it's judgment. And it's a language. Because abuse is a language. It's something we are taught in our formative years that we never let go. And now we're in this social media age where everything is so open. Everyone wants to share their thoughts every 5 minutes of every day and not realizing we're abusing each other. And it goes from being familial to being societal. Judgment, secrets. Shame. Someone taught you all of these things. The thing about me is that it's not what I've said that makes you so angry. It's the idea that I have a voice at all. And I ask people, what would you do if you had this freedom? What would you do if you could feel this free? To say what you felt. Not just some opinion that's going to tear somebody down, but really say how you feel, how someone, how life, how society has made you feel. What if you were this free? What would you say about what someone has said to you, done to you, how they have hurt you, how they have told you you're not good enough? What would you say if you were up here instead of me? Don't be mad at me. Because I get to say how I feel about what I've seen and what I've been through and what I've done. I'm not telling a story that hasn't been told before. Ain't a thing new under the sun. And I made that rhyme. Bars. Bars, bitch, bars. So now we realize this thing. Everyone asks. We find ourselves in abusive situations sometimes, and I'm going to give you an example of something so simple. If you know anything about me, I've been beaten a lot, okay? My mother taught me that abuse was okay. She was the first one to draw blood from my face. My mother was the first one to sprain my neck. My mother was the first one to throw me down a flight of stairs. When I was kidnapped and raped at 13 years old from the local mall, and I came home 3 days later after running away from my kidnapper, my mother beat me into the ground without ever asking me, what happened to you? And that's the thing, is you're all running around judging people and no one is asking the question, what has happened to you? What if someone asked you, instead of judging you, what has happened to you? Who did what to you? Who said what to you to make you how you are, who you are today? So my mother taught me this language, is how we communicated. And then my grandmother would bust into the room and then beat my mom's ass for beating me, and then it was just a bunch of people fighting each other, and no one thought about what it was going to be doing, what it would do, what it was doing to me, the baby. So when I got my first boyfriend in high school and he slapped me at the bus stop, there was nothing wrong with that. That was my language. He was speaking my language. I found someone who spoke my language. Nice to meet you, sir. I'll take that slap and give me some more, please, because you're speaking my language. My mother taught me that it can't be wrong, can it? So I got into other relationships, every single last one of them, more abusive than the next. When my son's father punched me in my kidneys and shut all my organs down, and I needed CPR and I cracked a rib and the ambulance had to come and they asked me what happened, and he looked at me and I looked at them and I said, I fell down the stairs. And every day when he beat me and every other day when the police came, there was always an excuse. And then one day they took me to jail for throwing a glass at him to stop him from running after me. My abuser stayed home in the comfort of his recliner, and I spent the night in jail for throwing a glass, trying to create a barrier of glass around me so he couldn't pass it, so he couldn't hit me again. There was a gun in the house, and I swore the next time I would kill him. So after that relationship, and I left that, and then the next one, and the next one, and my first husband beating me, spitting on me, beating with belts in front of my kid. My kid walked in and saw this happening. It had been 30-something years of my life now. And the question always is, why don't you just leave? As I began talking about this more, and being at California State University, Dominguez Hills, especially over the last couple of years, speaking to a biology class there full of students that will be going on to being social workers and whatnot, I heard myself say something one day, and I scribbled it down in this notebook I keep, and I said, it's a language. It's built into my DNA. It's just as much a part of me as English. It's how I speak, it's how I communicate, it's how people communicate with me, it's how we find each other. As an English-speaking American, you walk into a foreign country, let's say you're in France, and you don't understand anything. Who's the first person you're gonna look for? Someone who speaks your language. You're gonna go around asking people, do you speak English? Do you speak English? It's the same thing with abuse. Do you speak this violent language of mine? Do you? Because nonviolence is the foreign country. And when you're raised on this language, you don't know how to speak anything else. And when someone says, why don't you just leave? My answer is, why don't you just speak German? Swahili? Anything else? Right now, just do it right now. Don't look it up, don't reference, just do it. You cannot do it because it's not your language. You haven't acquired it. You haven't been immersed in it. You haven't practiced it. You haven't used it. You haven't created a life around it. And that's what abuse is. I began to study how people learn languages. First languages, second languages, L1s and L2s, and how the brain studies new things, new languages, how we break down new languages, how we integrate it into our lives, how we apply it, how we modify, how we correct. I began studying how we study language, how we teach it and how we study it, and I saw some correlations that made me feel so much better, because then when I'm talking to people about abuse, I can say, this is a language and this is why you can't just change it.